Alberto is concerned with the availability of options. Are there options? Maybe they're limited, but yeah, there are options, and I can choose from these options. To him, that's like exercising your autonomy. Rama says, no, okay, yeah, there are options, but then those options are very limited. And I'm not the one who's making the options. The options are just given to me. So even if I choose, I'm still limited. I'm still, yeah, exercising my autonomy, but then that's not like freedom. It's just giving you a little space, right? Am I summing up the whole thing?
Yeah, they are a little bit, let's say, inflicting between the autonomy and the freedoms. I said freedom is not necessarily focused on the providing multiple options in order to choose one or not. Not we don't need to necessarily focus on how many options are there. Should there be more or not more? I was saying is the freedom is, yeah, they necessarily there have to be options for people to choose, and at the same time it never finish at that and that in that context. It will focus on the idea that the option that you have taken, okay, process. How do you process? For example, you have a goal to achieve. That goal, it happened to be a long-term process. So it cannot be achieved in one day. So the process that you're becoming to reaching the goal, I think the option that you're making, if it those, for example, are very humane, like it's a good serving you and serving other humans, for example, if they're like something good, not harming others, and not harming even yourself, for example. So the way option is being mastered, I think that's the centrality of the freedom. That's what I'm saying. Self autonomy, or let's say autonomy, not necessarily saying self autonomy, but autonomy. It's kind of saying is that not only about necessarily there should be an option, but also it's about those options who is providing it, the critiquing the concepts from where the option I came from. The autonomy story thing is saying that necessarily the human self, the human self. I don't know what we meant by human self, but in general, it's a very complex term here existed, the human self. And then that self necessarily need to be defined itself, or create itself, or form itself, or process its life dichotomy process of living by itself or not. But I think in the context that the autonomy is saying is everything is made by that self. And then I go into posterity.
Okay, so you mentioned the word harm, right?
Okay.
Now, do you think that autonomy is not autonomy if it causes harm, and freedom is not freedom if it causes harm? Like, is that what you're saying?
Put the autonomy aside. Autonomy yet to decide whether there is harm or not harm, because about self-governing, it never focus about the other human side. It's about centrality of self. That's autonomy. So about saying harming or not harming, let's put it aside. We don't want to come in directly. Let's go to the freedom. Freedom is, yes, is if you're harming the exercise of the choices that you're making, if you're harming someone else, I think that's not a freedom. For example, someone crazy who want to do something bad for the humans. Do we tell like, it's the human?
Someone wants to destroy somebody else's restaurant because he doesn't have the options that
or he hates him or something like that, for example. If that exercising the choices that we are talking about, the multiplicity of the actions, choice, availability, I don't think so. I think I disagree in that context. But to bring the autonomy to this subject, autonomy has the whole structure has a problem within. Autonomy, the whole idea, autonomy saying is me. So why not me? I'm the owner of the restaurant itself. That's autonomy question for my views. Autonomy has a problem with the structure of the restaurant. Has a problem. Why this? Why not this? Not only just I choose it, but also it's about the whole process, because the self-governing or self-legislation process. So self-legislation meaning that it's not about rules that already existed externally, but also the rules has to be existed internally. Meaning I make rules, I define the restaurant, I define what kind of meal there, maybe based on the interest of a self. So is it narcissistic? Yes, it's narcissistic. Is it selfish? Yes. Aggrandize, yes, everything. But why we need to put it in a context of is it bad or not bad? Why we need to make it like a dualistic view of understanding life or things to say like, oh, this is bad, so we human, we need to just let it because autonomy is saying we need to govern. But
No,
autonomy has a problem.
no,
Okay,
but-
let arise an autonomy problem. Autonomy problem is that we human, we're different. You know, educationally speaking, our level is different. The consciousness, the human capacity of able to see, think whether good or bad, even is different. That's why we have a different background culturally, even educational level are different. From one person to person, and even from one community to community and country to the country are different. So is the autonomy need to be openly exercised in that context within these clear diversities? I think autonomy is the problem because if you give autonomy, self-governing to the ignorant, illiterate, or let's say illiterate persons who is yet to understand what's meant to be human or humane, so he will do something kind of crazy because there is no self-mastering management process existed in any human being. Yeah, there are some people, for example, generally I regard that, people educated, people know the good and bad, people able to decide the choices. But do you think these choices, if you give it for someone who is ignorant or someone who is a little bit weak, not having that capacity to make those choices, do you think they will able to master that self-governing process? No.
This actually reminds me of what happened back in 2019. I'm talking about Sudan here.
Yeah.
In 2019, when everyone was just protesting against everything, and the system was overthrown, there were people who were just going around harassing girls, for example, and if they were asked, they would say, "Well, you said this is freedom." Right, because that was part of the slogan of the revolution, "Hurriya Salam Adal." So that was like really interesting. And you mentioned the point about illiterate people having freedom and they don't know like whether this like they don't know what to do with it. But I still don't actually understand like your point about autonomy. Like as a person, do you think it's a good thing to be like autonomously free to exercise your autonomy, or do you think it's a bad thing?
As long as that person's you have the quality, educated, erudite, intellectual, or necessarily you know the value of the humans, you have the necessary let's say high ground of morality that you're able to make a good choices. For example, let's say assuming that let's just have a very good practical example. There are two people, for example,
But that's
let's say society, there are people live with a religious background, racial background, tribal background, very diverse. There are three people that optionally there existed to be selected to be the leaders. If these three people, one is centralizing the ruling system by their own belief system or the context. For example, if he religious person and he said like, my system will govern these people is theocratic. Someone said no, it's democratically there. Even theocracy itself, someone people say it's a democratic, but still someone said I have a liberal perspective on ruling those people, meaning that I don't focus on my belief to centralize the ruling ideas. So for the person who doesn't realize the differences of the people in that community, and when we give the autonomy process, I think will be bad choice. So that's why autonomy will be good when someone has those capacities, ability to make those kind of choices in a very effective and very good, not harmful ways. It's the good for them. But autonomy giving for someone, you get it.
So autonomy is good if you're responsible enough to take care of the limits that are there.
Yeah.
Okay, Roberto, do you think freedom is no longer freedom if it causes harm? And the same thing goes for autonomy. Like, do you think it's no longer autonomy or freedom if it causes harm?
I think it is still freedom, but maybe the exercise of autonomy makes cause problems. So I will not blame freedom. Let me present examples again.
Right.
For example, okay, trying to go to autonomy because I really want to show autonomy as, I mean, the possibility to decide according to my values, principles, even in a case where my freedom is affected or is limited. Let's say that I am in prison. Even I have autonomy to decide according to my values, my principles, my beliefs. I mean, to make decisions. Are my options limited? Yes. But still, all the time we exercise our autonomy. Should one person be, I don't know, limited in their possibilities to decide by their values, their principles, their beliefs? Okay, maybe we should approach to the role of the civil authorities, but it is not the direction I want to address or take right now. So in general, okay, even if I am in prison and there are limited options to decide, I can exercise my autonomy. Is it preferable that we have more alternatives in life? Yes. Does it mean that we, I don't know, we should be limited in the options we have? I don't think so. I mean,
okay. I'm sorry, but okay. So Elmer thinks that autonomy is not good if the person is not responsible enough to exercise it in a responsible manner. Do you agree? Like, okay, having autonomy, yeah, it is good as long as you have values that don't conflict with other people's values and you have values that go with everybody else's values, then you're not going to cause harm to others. The moment you start causing harm to others, then this is no longer autonomy.
Yes, I understand. No, actually, okay, let me, for not making a mistake,
That's okay.
misunderstanding
Okay, sure.
Omar's point and even your description, to repeat it by my words.
Sure.
But even I will contradict myself. Just
It's
my,
okay.
my previous statement,
It's okay.
because maybe I said something like, okay, should our alternatives be limited? Okay, maybe depending on the context, I would say I would stand for that statement. That this is the one that I am going to contradict. Because yes, maybe, I mean, even the role of justice, of civil authorities, or again, example, father.
Nice.
Am I against a father limiting the alternatives to his son? I don't know, to manipulate a knife, for example. Things like that. Okay, in that context, I think that obviously this is a good exercise of his autonomy as a father who has a responsibility with his children, but from the child, from his point of view, oh no, but I don't have all the alternatives. Oh, is there a lack of freedom? I don't know. I think that we need to talk about freedom and autonomy.
Separate.
If we talk also about law,
Ah.
as we talked last time,
Okay.
we would need to deal with that concept again. But I mean, addressing from the point of view of society, of how people decide. The example that you made about raising ladies, okay, should we limit them to exercise their freedom? Or I don't know if it is even freedom. Actually, from my point of view, even I would call the law of liberty.
And the law of liberty. That's
this is
Okay.
now I'm learning a lot of new terms because earlier Omar came,
Self-dictatorship.
self dictatorship.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have the law of liberty. Okay, but